And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Shut that door. Today we're talking about Pocket Battles, which is a game which essentially tries to recreate battles between the Celts and the Romans with just what you can find inside this small box. Some small tiles and some dice and counters. Is that good enough for a battle? Well, let me show you how the game works and we'll see. This is a two-player game. One player plays the Celts, the other player plays the Romans. And you decide on a point limit for your army. Let's say 60 points maybe is the limit for your army. And so you're going to look at these soldiers, or each of these units here, and there's two numbers on each unit here that matter. The first number is how many points that unit costs. So if I was building a 60-point army, this horseman unit would be 1/12 of my force already. The second number shows how big of a group that unit can go in. So let's say, for example, I can put together this noble cavalry, and I can put that together with the horsemen, because the noble cavalry can go in a group that's of a size 3 or less, and the horsemen can go in a size that's 2 or less. But now my group is done. I can't add anyone else to the group, or else it will go over the number 2 here. And so you can put people together and make different groups, although you can see some people, like for example this chariot here, must go by itself. So the first thing players do is they go ahead and they build their armies any way they want, making different groups. Players will take some of the figures that they haven't used, some of the tiles they haven't used, and put them down to form the battlefield. Basically, you have your center, and your left flank, and your right flank. And then players will, in turn order, place their units, or their piles of units, in the different areas. They will either put them in the right, left, center, and they can put them in the front line or in the back line. Now, normally you want to put your armies in the front, but there are a few units that you'd want to put in different areas depending on what kind of unit they are. And so this is not a complete representation of all the units that would probably be in a battle, but it's good enough for our purposes here. You then would, once you've made your units, you then open them up, you show your opponent, because before that all he could see would be the top of the unit. Here now you show him the full unit. And he said, oh, I thought, that was all legionnaires. Actually it has a centurion in it. Over here is the cavalry. This unit opens up, this unit opens up, and the unit over here opens up. And so you have different units that are open up and set around a table. The battle is now ready to begin. The game revolves around these action wound tokens. This side shows action, the other side shows wound, and a player will get one of these for every 10 points that their army size is. And so we're talking a 60-point army here. You would have 6 of these. And you would use these as the game progresses. One person goes first, and when it's their turn, they're going to pick one of their units on the board and place an order on that unit, and they can then attack or move with that unit. If they want to use that unit in the future, they can place another order on it. However, they have to place 1 and plus 1 for every counter that's already on it. So to give it a second order, they'd have to put 2. To give it a third order, they'd have to put 3, and then after that, you'd have to put 6. So that's really kind of ridiculous. You're never going to see that many order tokens on a unit. I mean, sometimes people will do 3, but usually people will do 2 at the most. Before you do any attacking or anything on your turn, you're allowed to maneuver, redeploy one of your units. They can move from the front to the back, or they can move from the back to the front, or they can move to an adjacent zone. But after that, if you want to move them over, you have to use an order. You can only do that to one unit. So most of the time, though, you're simply going to attack. They will just charge in, and you will pick an enemy unit that they will attack, and the enemy then has a few options. 1, they can take the attack and just fight you with the guys that you're attacking. 2, they can try to intercept it with another unit. Let's say maybe, for example, they had this unit over here in the middle. This unit could come in and intercept and take the brunt of the blow. And then thirdly, they can fire in at you if they have any ranged dice. And that's a pretty neat factor of the game. If you look at the top of each person's tile, you'll see different dice. Black dice is close combat, white dice is ranged, and the numbers are the numbers you need to hit. And it's a really neat mechanic of the game here, because when you roll a hit, when you attack, usually you roll 1 dice, although when you charge you get to roll an extra die, and you roll those dice and you're looking to see what they match. So let's look at this unit here where I have a centurion, 2 legionnaires, and alright, see the dice there at the top. I just rolled a 6 and a 4. Well, here I see 1, 2, 3 6s. That's 3 hits from my 6 that I've rolled. My 4 doesn't match any of the numbers, so the 4 is a miss. So I just dealt 3 hits to my opponent. When your opponent takes hits, they're going to look at the bottom of their card, and then you'll see a drop of blood there. That's how many wounds the person has. So 1 wound will kill you. Some units have more than 1 wound, like this does, and when that happens, you just simply place a wound marker. However, the wound marker you place on them comes from your order markers. So when you're wounded, you actually will have fewer orders to use for the rest of the battle. The only other thing I would mention is that on each of the units, or not all of them, but most of the units, there are these symbols, and each of those symbols gives that unit a special ability. And then each player has a card which tells you what all your special abilities do. And if I had one gripe, I would say I wish there was a card that showed you what all your opponent's items did too. Some of them are the same for both armies, but it would have been nice to look back and forth. But that's basically it. You move, you go into combat, you fight till you kill the opponent. You can move out of combat sometimes. You can fire at the opponent. You move into other zones and attack them there. But it's a very, very simple game, and yet there's a decent amount of depth because of the different abilities that are involved and the different way that you can create units. I like this game quite a bit. The tiles are nice size. They're not little dinky tiles. They're easy to maneuver around the board. The artwork is simplistic, but does a good job at the renditions of the units from this time. The units have a very differential feel. I like the order tokens and how you can use them to move things, and they are wounds. So when you take a wound, you have to decide, am I going to wound this guy, or will I just kill another guy outright? That way I don't have to waste a wound marker. And the special abilities add it. It's nothing complex. It's nothing great. There's obviously nothing that has to do with terrain here. It's just simply a straight battle between 2 people, and you move it. If I compare it to other popular war games, it's a little like Memoir 44, but even lighter than that. But at the same time, I hesitate to call it too light because that would take away from some of the depth. In a sense, this is pocket battles. You're going to play a game in maybe 20-30 minutes. It's very quick. Once you know how to play the game, you'll find that you take as much time to put your army together as you do to play the game. You play until you destroy half your opponents or to whatever you've predetermined when you play. And it seems like there's more expansions going to come out with different armies, and I look forward to that. If I would say anything negative about it, I would say that in this initial set, it does seem very much like the Romans have an advantage. Their army seems much stronger than the Celts. I could be wrong. But at least in all the games that we played, and I played quite a few, it looks like the Romans have an edge. I don't mind that. I don't mind asymmetrical battles, but just I'm throwing that out there. The armies are certainly not equal in any respect. They have very different feels. The Celts are lighter on their feet and have more maneuverability, more range in their forces, but the Romans just can come in and smash and smash. So there's some interesting aspects to this game. I love it quite a bit. Just a neat game, and one you can put in your pocket.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.